everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. I'm Brian Doyle, and with me are my co-hosts, Tim McNeil and Rob Rogers. What's going on, guys? How are we doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. My wife is going camping this weekend, so me and my other two daughters have free reign of the house. It's going to be a party for us.
Nice.
All junk food, staying up late. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah. Bad movies, all that kind of good
stuff,
yeah. Right?
Oh yeah. All Marvel, awesome. All Marvel, all night.
All Marvel, all night. I like
That's
it.
Right.
Well, today we're going to talk about the marvelous problems that we face as salespeople. And this is going to be one of our roundtable sessions today. And, this question comes up often. I'm sure you guys get it when you're talking to your customers. It's been coming up more often as I'm talking to some of my clients. And it's the concept of sales and price and overcoming the price objection. And, I think what we're going to do today is break it down and really look at it from a few different viewpoints, not just, price as we're going through the sales process, but let's talk about setting the right tone from price from the minute you make that first cold call until the deal's closed. So, with that said, maybe let's just talk a little bit first. And Timmy, this usually falls to you. Yeah. How do you overcome the objection when a customer comes to you and soon as your prospecting says, yeah, that's all great, send me a quote?
Yeah. So when you're in the prospecting mode and you're a salesperson, whether you're doing it via cold call or networking or happen to find somebody door to door, and they say the words, it sounds kind of interesting, just send me a quote. I mean, your initial response is, well, I can't really do that. And they're probably going to ask why, and they might be even a little offended. But here's my experience with people who just say, just send me a quote. Generally speak during the prospecting phase, right? When they say this during the prospecting phase, it's the first time you've talked to a decision maker or somebody who's in the right seat that can make that decision. That's a red flag right out of the gate, right? Generally, what that means is they're not going to value what you do. So you just have to take a step back and say, well, look, we, as a salesperson, or if you run into this scenario, even if you're an owner, just take a step back and just say, well, look, it's really not that easy, right? What we tend to focus on is how to get you from where you are from a technology standpoint to where you want to be in 3 to 5 years. And the only way to do that is really to have an in-depth conversation about where you are now, where you want to be, and how you use your technology. Now, I mean, there is a time and place where you can say, if you're talking to a prospect and they say, well, we've got 20 computers and 2 servers, we're all virtual or all cloud or whatever. I mean, you can give them a range. You can't say, okay, if you've got 20 people, or if you've got 20 devices and 2 servers, we'll call it, you're going to be between $2,000 to $3,000. Just again, throwing out random numbers. That is a way to give them just a test to see what they say. More times than not, that's going to disqualify them in the prospecting phase.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because one of my biggest challenges, like when I used to hear, well, just send me a quote, what's it going to cost? I want to scream back at the phone, well, what's your budget? Because we can't even have that conversation until we understand that, right? And the other thing, when you randomly send out a quote without, at least what you just defined there, Tim, was them kind of helping you scope out a budget by at least giving you what the need was, right? To some degree with the asset counts. But that's the other side of it too, right? It's, hey, how am I supposed to scope this? I can only do wrong. I'm going to send you a quote. Either you're going to think it's too low or you're going to think it's too high, because I don't know enough about you yet. The chance of me throwing that dart that's going to hit the bullseye by quoting you without knowing any information is 0, Mr. Customer. And we might as well hang up this phone now, because I'm either going to be too low or too high, because I'm going to be making assumptions.
Yeah, it's just not, I've literally never seen that happen or work. I mean, as a salesperson, if you get that objection and you do send out a quote, which you never should, but let's say you did, you're never going to get that deal. And even if you did, they're not staying, because that's the kind of person who they're going to do it to the next MSP or the next person who calls them. and somebody's going to beat your price by $1 per endpoint or $1 per device, and they're going to make the move.
At the prospecting stage, if you're talking to somebody on the phone or at networking, and this is like an initial engagement, to me, this has always been a brush off smokescreen. For whatever reason. There's the true objection is not really found yet. So what I always like to do is try and find out what is the real need. What are you looking for? So when they say just send me a price quote, you kind of like counter with, okay, what would you like to have a quote about? And then try and get them to talk about what they're really discussing. And then when they say, well, I have this, that, and the other, then you say, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about that piece of equipment. Then tell me a little bit more about that. And then all of a sudden you're engaging them in a conversation about what they've really asked for. And then you're finding out if this is a smoke screen to brush you off, or this is a smoke screen because that's the one objection that they are most comfortable with, price, right? Which that's the most comfortable that we're all with is pricing.
So I think you'll to that point, you'll know within 2 questions tops.
2 questions, yeah. Totally agree.
If you have any chance.
Yeah.
Like if you push back with 1 question and basically go down the road that Rob just said, they're either going to answer you or they're going to hang up the phone. And if they answer you, you've got 1 more chance.
Yep.
And if they answer that, you've got 1 more chance. Right. So that's yeah.
And then the way that you, like, if they're answering your question, say, you know what, this might be better for a meeting where we can really dive into your system and give you a perfectly accurate and customized understanding of what we're going to be able to bring to the table. And then but I do not give, pricing quotes, absolutely do not do a proposal for somebody quote over the phone. No.
You know what I like about that approach too is, you're really almost saying to the customer as well, hey, I'm qualifying you. And I think as salespeople, so sometimes we forget that part of our job is obviously to get appointments, and those can be difficult to get, but it's also getting the qualified appointment, right? Because, while it may satisfy a metric that's being measured for me to get an appointment today, it's still going to come through in the long term if all my appointments are 60% unqualified, right? So asking those questions, it's your right to, and it's your ability to really see if that prospect is going to be anything worth exploring. So great advice,
I'll tell you what,
guys.
Brian, if I am, we manage sales reps all over the nation. If I listen to a call of a sales rep that did this and started pushing back and asking questions, I would count that as an appointment. Like that would, to me, and then he disqualified it and saved the rest of us a bunch of work. 100%. I would be singing his praises or her praises all over the place. This is a vital piece of information. I agree with you, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're really talking about the equivalent of that, what we're all striving for these days too, which is that initial 15-minute conversation.
That initial 15 minutes.
Yeah.
If you can get through that 15 minutes and figure out if there's even a go or no go right there on the call. But, that's also a sales teaching method that I'm sure you guys at OSR do with your clients. Yeah. Hey, sometimes an appointment's not an appointment. It's just fact finding to figure out whether or not it should be a appointment.
That's a celebrated win in my book.
Celebrated win. I like that. Awesome. So let's maybe shift gears a little bit now into the actual sales process itself, right? So we talked a little bit about overcoming cost as you're going through the prospecting phase, but now I've got this appointment with the customer. I've gone through, I've done my, my needs analysis. I've worked with my team to solution architect a proposal. We've got it out in front of that customer and they go, whoa, too much. Well, they're all going to say, whoa, too much, right? Everybody's looking for a little pencil sharpening, but let's really dive into, how do you overcome that cost objection and how do you do it in a fairly fair win-win manner too, right? Because there is some expectation of some level of negotiation. You can keep that hard line and maybe you do, but I'd love to hear your guys' approaches maybe on keeping a hard line or being flexible. I don't know.
So let me go first here too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Never mess with your MRR. Ever. Like you can give discounts on onboarding, you can give discounts other places, but your MRR is never touched under any circumstances. There's nothing to negotiate there. There's other places you can negotiate, and you will know that as a team. But I just wanted to make sure that, before we really get into the price objection, if we can't agree that MRR at a corporate level is where we need to be, then this is not going to work, right? All of our metrics are based on that MRR that you're getting. So I just wanted to make sure that, before we went into the conversation negotiation, MSPs never, ever negotiate on your MRR.
Ever. In the history.
And I love that, and that is the hardline tactic, and it is the right tactic. And I like the fact that you're, illustrating where some of that discounting can be done. And I think that gets into another conversation we could probably do in another episode. Are you charging for onboarding?
Yeah, very true. That's definitely a
part
place.
Of it. What I heard there is I might not have those other discount points available to me because I'm not doing a good job on that side, right?
Then also, you add in some value. You don't touch your MRR.
Yeah, and it could even be a sales tactic for that conversation, right?
Very
you can put an MRR that you're willing to eat 100% of the time a non-recurring cost that you're willing to eat every time. Hey, we have a $500 setup cost. We have a $1,000 setup cost, knowing that's going to be the give back in negotiation from day one. And if you actually get it, hey, great, you just made an extra $1,000 because you're going to do it anyway.
What I would do there, Brian, is you definitely have to have some kind of win. Like maybe it's contract, maybe you have a 3-year deal and you're willing to go down to a 2-year deal. The inflationary clause can be messed with, some type of investment onboarding fee or, extra services, but your price is your price. We offer a fair value for a fair price, and this is what we do. But you have to, before you can get there, you have to build up the value first, which is what we're talking about here. Why is price a smokescreen objection, and how do you get around that and kind of be preemptive with it?
Tim, any thoughts?
Yeah, just to dovetail off what Rob said, I think, look, when you get to the point where you're handing a prospect a proposal, everybody should have a pretty good idea of where you're going to stand, right? Like you should never, in my opinion, as an MSP, you should never show up to a prospecting proposal meeting and not have that prospect on the other side of the table at least have an idea of where you're going to be coming in. First off, you need to know going into that meeting who they're working with and just an estimate of what they're paying per month. It doesn't need to be an exact number, but just, hey, prospect, just so I know. And look, this doesn't change our price at all, but prospect, what would you say you're averaging per month? It doesn't need to be exact. For your current MSP, and if it's a significant difference, then you kind of get ahead of that and say, okay, well, look, we may come in at a higher number, but we're going to talk to you about how we're going to get you from where you are now, just like I mentioned before, from where you are now to where you want to be in the future through your technology goals. And through your technology needs. So again, it should never be a huge shock going into that proposal meeting what that price is. And one thing that we talk about quite often is, let's say you go in and that prospect that you're talking with, they're paying $2,500 a month already, and you're coming in at $3,000. You're not selling a $3,000 contract. You're selling $500. So you need to show them why you're so much better in that $500. And that's the key. I think that's one thing that people miss a lot. They feel like they're going in and, I'm selling a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a month MRR deal, when that's not necessarily the case, because they're already paying something. So you need to really focus on that gap and how much better you are in that gap.
That's a great perspective, because that really is the sale, right? And it also should make it a little bit easier for a salesperson, because now you're not talking about the big number. You are talking about a much smaller number, which you should be able to align some level of value back to, through your stack, through the services you provide, through the differentiators that should exist already between you and almost any, no two MSPs do it exactly the same, right? So, whether it's a perceived benefit or a real benefit, you should be able to point to something that is slightly different than the other MSP is doing and why it's better.
And you remember when you're doing a when you have an increase on your side that you have to make the customer pay for it, you divide it all the way down to the device per day. So for just an extra $1.50 per day, what you're going to be getting in addition is this, and you always tie it all the way back upstream to the benefits that you found out in the first needs analysis. They're a profit-oriented company or they're a revenue-oriented company, and how this is going to be a return on their investment for what they're trying to do. Number
All
one,
for the cup of coffee.
That's right. Hey, it works, man. You always bring costs down to the lowest common denominator and savings all the way up to an annual savings.
The highest.
That's it. Like, it's what you do. But just remember, to Timmy's point earlier, when he was saying you have to find out what their budget is before you can even get to this stage. Remember, you do a needs analysis, right? We get on site, we do a needs analysis, but everybody thinks that a needs analysis is technology only related. It's also the business side. You ask for that contract. Yeah. In the way that we always ask for the contract is, hey, so we can give you a clear analysis of everything that's going on within your infrastructure. If you can give us your contract, redact the name, redact the price. As soon as you say, give me your contract, always say, redact the name, redact the price. And most of the time, 75% of the time, they give it to you without redacting anything. Yeah. Right? They just give it to you because you're going to do an apples to apples comparison on how you're going to be demonstrating value. So then everything, and then you have to sell your value over and above what they're doing. So that gets us to this point. And then the second point is, when you're at that proposal meeting, you never allow them the pricing page until after you have summarized everything and gotten their feedback to say, yes, this is everything that I need. Then you give them the price.
Yeah, I agreed with that.
So, let me ask you there. So you're really talking about having a proposal document and a separate pricing sheet when you go in.
Right. And
people start leaping ahead as soon as you give that document.
Exactly. I never give up control of the proposal. Never. Yeah. I would go with them. Like I don't do this anymore, but we would go with it, go over it with them if we were sitting across the desk, and the pricing would always be separate. Yeah. Because what's the one thing people are comfortable with to show that they have knowledge in the situation? They don't know IP, they don't know IT, they don't know any of the deep server stuff, but they know price, right? Anywhere they go, they know with price. If a lower price is there, that's a value. And you have to demonstrate that that is not the only value that you're bringing to the table.
Well, and just an extension of that is, even if and when you get to that point, right? Even if you get to the point where you show them the price and maybe there is a pushback and you are too expensive. Generally, what we have found historically is that's really a smokescreen. If you set the stage right and you're in that proposal meeting, and you wait to give them the numbers page, and up to that point they agreed that you are the same or better in every area that they're currently getting, and then you show them the price page, and then they have the price objection. Something generally is off there, meaning it's not really the price, it's something else. So you didn't provide value somewhere else, you just have to do a bit of a reset. And I think we've talked about this from time to time about just making sure that you confirm what you've already confirmed with the issues that they have, that you're going to be able to solve them. And then you go back to, okay, well, you just bring it all back to the value and how this is going to help solve their technology goals moving forward as a company.
So, guys, we're getting near the end of our time. So I know, Rob, but when we were discussing this prior to recording today, you had mentioned that you wanted to talk a little bit about when to benchmark. Maybe you can give us a minute or two on, when to benchmark and how that process should look.
So you never benchmark on a 15-minute prospecting call, right? And what I mean by benchmarking is, trying to understand where their budget is, and if their budget is going to be within the realm of possibility that you can work with. So a prospecting call where you get 5 minutes on the phone with them is not the appropriate place to do it. Talking money when you first meet somebody is wrong, and it's a big fail, right? So when I do this, I talk about it at the needs analysis stage, the discovery meeting, where you're trying to find out everything about their network. You're also trying to find out about their company. You're also trying to find out about their budget. That is the appropriate place to find out where they are. And there's a couple of ways that Timmy and I used to do this. You can either come right out with what you know, you find out they have 20 workstations and they have 2 servers. If you're an MSP that the rep can do the math in their head, because they're just simple numbers and they can do the numbers in their head, then at the end of the meeting, when you guys are all talking about everything and it's just, we're going to be doing this, that, and the other. But before we go and do this proposal, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. For us to provide this value, it's going to be between 2,000 and 3,000. Knowing in your head, it's going to be right around 2,200. You give your benchmark and you give a wide range and put where your actual number is at the lower end of that. And you say, does this make sense for you and what you guys are comfortable with right now? And, just to, get us to the next stage and let them know this is going to take us about 9 hours to do all the, analysis for this and make sure that we're giving you a customized and strong plan. So let them know there's hard work coming their way, and they'll be honest with you. They just will. And that was, one of the ways that we did it.
Yeah.
So, a couple takeaways I heard here, is it's really about keeping some client control throughout the process too, and setting the right expectations and being exactly what we're supposed to be, consultative salespeople, right? Really helping guide them to a solution. So, what I'm hearing is if you take these steps and really refine them and bring them in, you're going to remove the surprises. And you're also going to be able to save yourself time, because if you can't qualify them and get them to where your price point needs to be, probably time to move on, right?
Yeah. And
sometimes you just can't overcome the cost objection. If the cost, if
sometimes
the funds
you can't.
There, if the funds aren't there.
If they're not there, they're not there. And they're going to be honest with you. If you tell them it's between 2,000 and 3,000 and they say, whoa, we're used to paying $500 a month. Then the next question you ask is, who are you guys working with?
Yeah.
And then, you may not be able to compete with that.
Right. Exactly. Well, and look, it just real quick, going back to what Rob said, as far as getting contracts and understanding what your competitors are doing. We used to do that, and we had a list of everybody. I knew going in, there was one company in Hartford that I knew every single time, if I talked to a prospect who used this company, we had no chance, because they were about 75% less than we were on a monthly basis. There was no way. Right. So it's just okay, you're fine being with somebody who is on the cheaper side. That's not us.
Yep.
Live to fight another day. Nice.
Yep. Moving on.
Take us home, Rob.
All right. So fellas, this was a good one. I love getting into these type of strategies and, doing all this kind of stuff. It's one of my favorites. Just to let everybody know, this episode will be up on mspbusinessschool.com and anywhere that you get your podcast, to include YouTube. If anybody out there has any questions for us, or they have any comments, or they want us to talk about a certain topic, we love to hear from everybody, and would 100% talk about that question or issue or thought that you have. Fellas, before we break away here, any closing thoughts?
I myself don't have any. I think we covered everything around the sales objection as best we could. Nice job, guys.
All right, fellas. All right. Always a pleasure.
All right.
All right. Thanks. Guys, have a great week.
You too.
Bye.